Swag, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Agitsanuni, and that means that she's happy in the Naida language. And welcome to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This video is a little bit more serious once those loud ass cars go by. So tomorrow is October 4th, which is the National Day of Action for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. So I wanted to start a conversation around that because I made my ranty anti video with the influencer Beauty by Bianca and how she misspoke on MMIW and how she spread a lot of like misinformation, and she got, you know, like held accountable, I think, for her actions. And you know, a lot of people think that information isn't readily available or isn't easily accessible, or some reason, like they just want to speak on issues and not know. I want to do my part and take action, and so by watching this video, hopefully you will be able to take some action yourself. A lot of times it is just getting educated. That's probably the biggest action that you can take. By reading some of the reports that come out. So the RCMP did the National Inquiry for the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, and that report is really important, and because there was a lot of advocacy for that report. But even what we've seen in current social media and how we've seen, you know, the case of the Gabby who, you know, like was tragically murdered, like I'm not dismissing that, but to see the outrage from the media and to see the outrage from people on social media, you know, advocating for her, spreading awareness about her case, like, you know, all of that stuff, like, was really great to see, which it was encouraging. Like, it was like awesome, nice, that I'm so glad people are so passionate about this. But then, you know, when our Indigenous girls and boys, like Indigenous folks, go missing or are murdered, like, it's just like it might get buzz for a day or so. It doesn't like get the same steam and stamina, and that's like the biggest part that's really disheartening, because it's like we matter too, right? Like, it's like Indigenous people are important and they deserve to be here just as much as anybody else. So by doing these actions, like by people, you know, uplifting the voices of, you know, privileged people, that, you know, it's really kind of like a kick in the face. Like, you're like, you know, we're over here, like, you know, doing marches, doing vigils, doing a lot of action based to raise awareness about the epidemic that is missing and murdered Indigenous women. Like, the latest reports were like really low numbers, like they're like 1,200. like that's the number that like circles all around on social media a lot, and it's like, no, it's like probably way more than that, because those are reported cases, right? How many times do families go to police, and police, because of the colonial system that they're, you know, they're situated in, right, that they just don't, they're like, oh yeah, they probably ran away, right? Like, there are so many negative stereotypes towards Indigenous people, and by doing some reading and by educating yourself about the negative stereotypes and how maybe you're inadvertently perpetuating those stereotypes, or even if you hear with them within your family members, like, you know, tell them that that's not the truth. Tell them that that's wrong, like that they shouldn't have preconceived notions about anyone, that a lot of Indigenous women and girls and folks, like, because we're not including, you know, sometimes two-spirit people get left out of the conversation. So Indigenous folks, that's what that's the term that I'll use to be inclusive. Indigenous people aren't vulnerable. Indigenous people are targeted, and we've been targeted since Europeans arrived, because we had the land, right? Like, so you see it so common, right? Like that there's so much that was taken from Indigenous people, our ways of being, our language, our culture. There were just so much taken from us, and the land, like, but it's like we know how to share the land. We know that the land is our mother, and we need to take care of her, and we need to nourish her, and make sure that, you know, we're not just exploiting her. And I think that's where a lot of people draw the relationship between how we're treating Mother Earth as similarity to how, mistreated missing and murdered Indigenous women are being, because we are from the earth. Like in our language, in the Oneida language, the people are Ganjokwa, and they're like the first things that we give thanks for in our Thanksgiving address, our Gunahula, because we are made of the clay of our mother. Like we are made from the clay of the earth, and that's really important. Like we are so connected and have deep roots to our Mother Earth. So when there's things going on like pipelines and fracking, and those things are going on, it makes it really difficult for Indigenous people to survive, because they have been a target of genocide since the European arrival, with the smallpox epidemic, and how, our population was wiped out. We were like 2 million strong. They estimate, it could be more than that. We were like 2 million strong before European arrival. They wiped us out to way under half, like through the smallpox blankets. Like they had diseases, and they brought those diseases here, and they killed us off, and it's just so terrible. And to see that this is continuing to happen in current day, that so many women go missing or get murdered, and no one's talking about it the same way that they're talking about the case with Gabby, and it just like is so disheartening, because like we are just as important as everyone else. Like Indigenous lives are important, like same with like all other minorities, but it's like we can't continue to just like be targeted. There is so much with human trafficking. On this day of National Action for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, please start educating yourself, start reading, and if you are well read on the issue, then feel like, take the next step, go to the action. So whether it's raising funding, whether it's holding your local authorities accountable, whether it's drafting letters to municipality and your MP and the Prime Minister, and saying, hey, this is a real problem and we need to protect Indigenous women, like we need to protect Indigenous folks. Like that is the stance that I think all non-Indigenous people should be taking, that the Indigenous population needs to be protected right now. Like there's not a lot that we can do to protect ourselves, because the systems at play are so racist and so colonial that they just don't even, they're not budging, right? It's until the citizens, demand for the systems to change, and the systems to be more understanding and to be compassionate, and understand, that a lot of times Indigenous people are victim of circumstances. Like it's not just, that Indigenous people are bad and that they want to do bad things. It's like they are forced into it because there are not any other options, because of the legacy of colonialism and the legacy of residential school. Like there was so much, sexual abuse that happened in residential school, and that definitely had a toll on our Indigenous folks. Like how do you, that if that was normalized, that happened in those schools, like and then it continues to happen, and it's hard to break those cycles. But I am very hopeful that there's a lot of young, courageous Indigenous people out there reclaiming their language and their culture and advocating for MMIW, and but it's so disheartening to have to share, like, when Indigenous women go missing and are not able to be found right away. Like it's just tough. Like Indigenous folks, like I swear there's probably like at least once or twice a week that like I end up sharing stuff about missing Indigenous people, because it's always happening. Like we just, so I'm getting really passionate and emotional, because I'm just so thankful that I'm able to use my voice and to use my skills to share this with you and to tell you how important it is. And I'm so, in the honor of the day, I've also made these earrings for the day. So and there's sometimes with the hang red dress, I think that's in May, but this is the day a lot of times where there are vigils happening. So if you can go out and support one in community and hold our authorities accountable for actually following through with this. If you like the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Nagiwa.